Thank you for joining me in this meeting. We will continue how to measure the masonry quantity takeoff. As I mentioned the last meeting, to figure out the number of bricks you need to order to accomplish your work or your task, we have few steps, 5 steps. The first step, we need to calculate the net surface area of the walls. The second step, what is the surface area of one brick? The third step, we need to divide the area in step number 1 by the area in step number 2, and then multiply this number by the number of rows. Sometimes we have 2 rows, like this photo. If we have 1 row, we don't need to do step number 4. Then step number 5, we need add extra amount, expecting any waste during construction, maybe taking this waste by 2%, 5%, 6%, maximum maybe 10%. I do have few examples and I would like to cover them today. The first example, we have this elevation of a building of 5 stories or 5 floors with ground 1, and we need to figure out how many bricks we need to order to cover the surface area of this elevation. Does that make sense? So it doesn't make sense to open your AutoCAD file and try to count these numbers of bricks. Doesn't make sense. What we are going to do, we are going to use the steps in this slide, the 5 steps, how to figure out the total number of bricks. By the way, we are going to use this type of bricks in our construction. So 8 by 4 by 4 dimensions, 8 inch by 4 inch by 4 inch will be used to construct this elevation. Does that make sense? So all dimensions are given. If any missing dimension, you can measure them from AutoCAD. So the total width of this elevation is 50 feet, 0.45. The total height until this elevation is 50 feet, and then the height of the ground floor is 15 feet. And we have some opening, garage, 2 garage opening. The width is around 12.84 feet, and the height may be 13. If you subtract 15 minus 2 will give you the height of this opening and the height of this opening. And we have main entrance of the building, this main entrance with the width 12.84, and the height will be the same like the 2 garage openings. This strip is not constructing from bricks, so it will be considered subtraction or opening. It's up to you, but we have to subtract this area because this area will not need any bricks. So we need to do our calculations using Excel. Guys, keep in your mind, we don't have a standard format for your calculations. You can do whatever you want. Does that make sense? It's up to you. This is your design of your calculations. So let's start to figure out the gross area of the elevation. Gross area of the elevation. If you don't like to make it bigger like this one, you can highlight few cells, right click, format cell, and you can merge all of them together. You can change the font to be bold, to be bigger, border, whatever the border you would like. Does that make sense? Something looks like this. And you can also add one more to be like this. Okay. So what is the width? What is the height? Then I can tell you what is the gross area. So what is the width of this elevation? 50.45. And you can write here the unit, feet. What is the height? What is the total height? If you would like to figure out the total height, then we can subtract the openings. That's fine. So the total height will be 50 feet until this elevation, and you add 15 feet. So the total height will be 65 feet. That makes sense? That means the gross area will equal, don't do any calculations with your calculator. This is the reason why I opened Excel. I will say equal, and I will multiply this cell time this cell. Enter. This is the total gross surface area feet square. Or you can write it like this. Square feet. That makes sense? So for any reason, if these dimensions change it, you can come here to the Excel, change this number, automatically the gross area will be changed. Does that make sense? Let's start talking about openings. Let's start talking about openings. If you look to this elevation, we have many subtractions. Any subtractions can be considered openings. You know, so the first opening is the garage door. This one and this one, and we have the main entrance. Looks like the three openings with the same width and the same height. So I can say we have doors or garage doors or main entrance or whatever. You can detail them. We can put it here. Yeah. So what is the length? What is the width? What is the number? So for doors, we have this one with width 12.84. We can say it's length and the height, not width. So the height will be, as I mentioned, it's not given. I can measure it, or I can calculate it. 15 minus 2 will give you the height of this door. It's 13. How many? We have three. Three doors. You can add here this length in feet. It's very important to write the unit beside each one. And I can make them at the middle. There you go. I can make these titles or these names in bold. So these are the doors. We have windows. Where is the windows? If you look to the elevation, this is a window. This is a window, 5 by 5 feet. This one is a window. This one is a window. So how many windows do you have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 windows, each 5 by 5. So 5 feet by 5 feet. How many? How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have a balcony door. We have here, this one is called balcony door. This one is balcony door. What is the area of this one? So be careful. In this one, are you going to subtract this area or this area? Because later I will subtract the body of the balcony, this body. So don't be confused and don't count this area 2 times, because looks like this area is existing with the door of the balcony and with the body of the balcony. So be careful about this one. Don't subtract the same area multiple times. So I will consider this door only this area. So 6.5 feet by 4.5 feet. How many doors do you have of the balcony? If you count all of them, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So we have 10. And we have the balcony. Body. What are the dimensions of this body? If you look here, the dimensions, so the total height is 5 feet. The total length, I'm gonna assume it, if you assume this one looks like sharp and this one will not be counted, they are very little. So we can count the body area of this balcony is a rectangle with dimension 5 by 17. How many balcony do you have? Balcony body, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Do you think we have more subtractions we need to subtract? I think yes, we missed this strip. This strip will be finished with a different technique. It's not bricks. So the length of this one is 2 feet by, what is the total width? 50.45. So 50.45 by 2 feet. How many? It's only one strip. So we can label it like strip. Do you think we have more openings? No. So the total surface area is 50.45 by 65 feet. Then I will subtract this door, this door, this door, these windows, these doors for the balcony and the balcony bodies, and this strip. Does that make sense? So what is the total opening area in square feet? You can merge these cells like this. I can write it here. Equal these doors length time height time how many plus another parent bracket windows this width time this height time how many do you have plus the balcony doors this one time this one time how many plus the balcony body this one time how many plus the strip this length by this height by how many. Enter will give you the total openings that will be subtracted from the gross area. Does that make sense? So I can say the total net area in square feet will equal this number, the gross area minus this number. 1,410.09 square feet. This is step number 1. How to figure out the net surface area of the wall. You have to get the total gross surface area minus any openings. I mean here, not opening, just opening. The opening here means the areas that will not be constructed with bricks. It will be considered opening. So for example, this strip is considered opening. This balcony body will be considered openings. They are not exact opening, but I mean here they will be subtracted from the total gross surface area. Does that make sense? Okay, second step, let's talk about the brick. As I mentioned, we are going to use 4 by 8 by 4 brick. So the dimension that I am going to use, this 8 by this 4. Keep in your mind, this is the length, this is the width, this is the height. Does that make sense? So I will add this information here. If you would like to keep going, I can mark this one talking about the bricks. What is the length in inch? What is the width in inch? And what is the height in inch? As I mentioned, it's 8 inch, 4 inch, 4 inch. I'm sorry, 4 inch, 4 inch. For the joint, what is the thickness of the joint in inch? It's 0.5 inch. So I can say the area of one brick will equal inch square. Keep in your mind and remember, if your brick surface area is 8 inch by 4, I have to increase these numbers from center line, center line, center line, center line, to count half of the joint thickness and half of the joint thickness. If you remember, this joint, the layer of the mortar is called joint. This thickness is 0.5 inch. So each brick will be considered from center line to center line. So quarter inch from this side, quarter inch from the other side. So I have to increase the length by 0.5 inch. And the height, I will consider from center line to center line. So I will consider quarter inch from this one and a quarter inch adding to the 4 inch. So the total surface area will equal. It's up to you. I will add the length plus the thickness time the height. This is the height. This is the height. This is the height, because I will consider this area, this surface area. So length and the height plus the thickness of the joint. If you multiply this one by this one, will give you 38.25 inches square, which is the area of one brick. Does that make sense? For any reason, but let me finish first and then go back. Let's start with to figure out the first number. Number of bricks. The number the total number, will equal we need to divide the net surface area of the wall by the surface area of one brick. Both of them must be in square feet. And we need to multiply the number by how many rows do you have. And we need to consider factor of safety or waste. We can consider it 10%. It's up to you. Or I can add all of this information here. Why not? So I can say what is the number of rows? So the number of rows equal 1, for example. Does that make sense? And I can add here we can add one here. Waste. So I'm gonna assume the waste equal 10%. I would like to make everything variable. So the number of bricks I will consider will equal, open bracket, I will divide the net surface area, the total net area of the wall, this one, divided by the area of one brick, the area of one brick, where is the area of one brick? This one, but this one will be divided by 144. I mean, you have to convert it to feet square. It's an inch square. So I have to divide it by 12 by 12. Then this number will be multiplied by how many rows do you have? And this number will be multiplied by 1 plus the waste divided by 100. Does that make sense? So you may add 1.1, maybe 5%, 1.05, whatever. If you push enter, so this is the total number of bricks you need to order. If you would like, I can go back and change the format cell of this cell, make the numbers to be with 0 decimal. That means it will be integer number, 5,839. This is the total number of bricks. For any reason, if you decide to make the waste to be 5%, enter, everything will be changed. If you decided one day the number of rows that you are going to construct to finish up this elevation, the number of rows is not 1, it's 2, enter, all numbers will be changed. If you decided one day that you are going to use a different dimensions, for example, let's do this one, this brick. So the length will be 12. For brick, the length will be 12. The width will be 4, and the height will be 3 1/5, 3.2. So the height will be 3.2, and the width will remain 4. If you change the dimensions, everything will be changed. Does that make sense? That makes sense. If you decided the joint thickness is not 0.5, it's 0.75, enter, everything will be changed. That makes sense? So now I finished my calculations, and I can tell you if we have this elevation of the building and you need to construct these bricks. So how many bricks I need to order? Keep in your mind, the joint thickness is 0.75. These are the dimensions of the brick I'm gonna use. The number of rows equal to, I'm gonna consider 5% waste, so the total number will be 8,467 bricks. That makes sense? You may highlight this one because this is the final answer. There you go. Anybody has any question? Yeah, after you are done, maybe you can highlight these and make and decorate your sheet. If you would like to use different colors, that's fine. Maybe you can use these colors with this one. Why not? Here you go. The main title will be in different colors, like this. I am done. Does that make sense? You may able to print, just highlight all of them like this, and you go to File, Print, and you may select the selection only. That makes sense? You may go to Page Setup and make your margin to be horizontally and vertically centered. Once you are ready, and make sure you have here 1 of 1, that means you have only one page. You are ready, hit print. You can print it as a PDF file, or if you have a printer, you can select it from here and print. Does that make sense? That makes sense? This is for the first example. There is one more point I need to cover today. Okay, to construct these bricks, we have to use mortar. I mean, you have to use the mortar, this one, to fill the joints between this brick and this brick and this brick and so on. Does that make sense? So we have few steps. If you follow these steps, you can figure out what is the quantity take off of the mortar. Step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, and that's it. Let's start. Step number 1, we need to calculate the volume of mortar needed for one brick. What you need to do, just figuring out or put your numbers in this equation. T times W times L plus H plus T. Keep in your mind, if this is the brick, this one is called length, this one is called width, this one is called H. And the T represented the thickness of the mortar or the joint size. So if you decided to figure out the volume per brick, I can put it here. The volume per brick, you can say equal. What you need to do, just set up this equation. T times W. Where is T? The joint thickness time W of the brick time, open a bracket. I need to add the length plus H plus T. Where is the length? This is the length of the brick plus H. This is the H plus T, this is the thickness of the joint. So if you look to this equation, what I did only the volume of mortar per brick. Enter this one in inch cube. So right now, this one, I talked about bricks. But right now, I'm talking about mortar. Does that make sense? This is the first step. Calculate out the volume of mortar for one brick. What you need to do to multiply the thickness of the joint of the mortar time width of the brick time L, the length, plus H, the height of the brick, plus T, the joint thickness. Second step, you need to multiply the mortar required per brick that you calculated here by the total number of bricks you need to order. So the volume of mortar, this volume will equal the number of bricks I calculated from the first step will be multiplied by time the volume of mortar needed for one brick. Keep in your mind this volume in inch cube. So I will divide it by 12 cube. If you have volume with inch cube, if you would like to convert it to cubic feet or feet cube, you have to divide by 12 3 times. This is the total volume of mortar needed in cubic feet. Does that make sense? But we have some adjustment. So this is step number 2. Multiply the mortar required in step number 1 by the total number of bricks you found from the first part of the problem. If you are using more than one row, looks like we are using 2 rows. Looks like we are using 2 rows. So if you are using more than one row, we need to add additional amount of mortar to fill the gap between the 2 rows. How much is this volume? Equal the joint thickness times the net surface area of the wall. So, because we have 2 rows, we have additional volume of mortar. This additional volume of mortar equal the thickness of the brick of the joint divided by 12 to convert it to feet. And this thickness will be multiplied by the net surface area of the wall, the total net area, which is this one. So I need additional cubic feet, 88 cubic feet additional mortar, beside the volume of mortar needed to construct the 2 rows. This additional mortar because we have 2 rows and we need to fill the gap between the 2 rows. So I can say the total volume of mortar will equal this number plus this number. Does that make sense? I do have another option. I need to multiply this amount by the number of rows minus 1. Why? Anybody knows why I added this term to multiply this amount? It's already 88.13. So why you multiplied it by the number of rows minus 1? Do you know why? to make my calculation sheet more dynamic. What you mean? If the number of rows equal 1, that means I don't need additional amount of mortar. So this number will be 0. How did you do this? What I did, I multiplied this extra term, the number of rows minus 1. If you have 2 rows, so I will multiply this amount by 1. That's fine. If the number of rows is 1, so this number will be multiplied by 0, so no need for this number. That makes sense? So the number of rows right now is 2. I have additional amount. This is additional amount. If the number of rows is 3, that's fine. We will have additional. That makes sense? So this is a very good way to figure out the number of bricks will equal 4,233, and this is the total amount volume of mortar in cubic feet. One more time, for any reason, if you decided this width is not 50.45, it's 60, for any reason, what I need to do just to change this number to 60, everything in the sheet, including the number of bricks will be changed, the total amount of mortar will be changed. Can you see? Here you go. Everything will be changed. For any reason, if you decided the dimensions of the brick will be changed, everything in the problem or in your calculation will be changed. Does that make sense? Any question? So the new part we added today, how to figure out the total amount or the total volume of mortar you need to construct, you need to use for construction. I will calculate this amount, how much mortar needed for one brick. How? Just use this expression and keep in your mind the dimensions of the brick looks like this. This is the length, this is the width, this is the height, and the mortar is called the T thickness. Thickness of the mortar or thickness of the joint. Once you calculated the volume of mortar for one brick, I will multiply the number of bricks you calculated before by this amount. This is the total amount. We may add additional, if more than one row is used, the volume of mortar needed to fill the gap between the rows need to be added, extra amount. This amount equals the joint thickness multiplied by the net surface area of the wall. We may add waste, 10%, 15%, 25%, whatever. So you may add here, if you would like. We have here waste. This waste equal 20%, for example. So the total amount, the total volume of mortar, we need to consider time 1 plus this waste divided by 100. Does that make sense? Waste. So if this amount is 25% waste, this number will be changed. If the amount of waste is 15%, this number will be changed. Does that make sense?